So maybe I could chime in at this point. I just put a link on the chat to a website that I maintain that has a lot of documents for tech users, BibTeX users, for getting started. They include an extensive tutorial on BibTeX and also a tutorial on LaTeX, which is part of a roughly 2-hour workshop I give to students to bring them up from never having seen tech before to writing their first novel. Obviously not their first detailed mathematics textbook. Can't do that in 2 hours, but you can get quite far in a couple of hours of tuition. And there are a number of other documents there, including an online free textbook about LaTeX. So feel free to probe around that. Most of them are HTML rather than TeX, which will help the visually impaired users. Some of them are PDFs of articles that are related. Anyway, that's all I have for the moment.
So, Dawn and Airedale, would you like to tell us a little bit about the book you're writing, Dawn?
Sure.
Only a little bit.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, this came out. This has its origins in the LaTeX classes that I taught, and it's geared primarily at people who are writing documents in LaTeX. So it doesn't go into creating class styles. There's going to be a second, actually, multiple volumes coming after the first one, assuming that anybody wants the first one. And one will be getting into depth about creating document classes and packages and programming it. But this is primarily about writing with it. And some of the key things are just kind of, both what I include and what I leave out. So I'm not, kind of, at kind of like a really basic level of kind of including and leaving out. I don't mention the margin pair command because that's not a structural command, and it's really something that should be more for people writing packages and classes. On the other hand, I made a choice to do things like talk about the align environment instead of EQ align, because that's better typesetting and is fixes a lot of other issues with it. And even though it's not part of kind of the core original LaTeX, it's something that everybody should be using. So.
I think that's always a good idea. But we sort of got a bit of a problem about resources being all over the place. And perhaps that's not the right phrase. I mean, now Nelson has got a collection of resources that he just gave us a link to. And I've seen resources, for example, from the Cambridge University Engineering Laboratory, seems to be pretty good. So it seems to me as though there are a lot of collections of good LaTeX resources, but they're not sort of consolidated. And I see that as a problem, and I see that as a big problem. And I don't know how we can make a small contribution to solving it. I don't know if people agree with me in that point of view. That in the old days, you put something up on the TUG website, or you wrote something to comp.tex.tech, and that provided it with currency. But now there are so many forums and so forth for things to go. But and also there's so much noise on the internet, it's a bit hard to get currency to new things that are worth having. I want to know what other people think, whether they agree with me or not. Especially if they don't agree with me. Because that means that I'll learn something.
Can I say something